On August 26, 1794, President George Washington wrote to Henry, Light Horse Harry Lee, Virginia's governor and former Revolutionary War general, about the Whiskey Rebellion, the first major challenge to federal authority under his leadership. In the letter, Washington stated that he had no choice but to act against the insurgents, warning that their defiance threatened to shake the government to its foundation. The uprising stemmed from resentment among grain farmers toward a federal excise tax on distilled spirits. First enacted in 1791, farmers in western Pennsylvania, who often relied on converting grain into whiskey for trade and profit, saw the tax as unfair and oppressive. Many responded by intimidating or attacking federal tax collectors. At first, Washington attempted to pursue legal action against offenders, but by 1794 resistance had escalated. That summer, some 6,000 armed men gathered near Pittsburgh, brandishing mock guillotines and openly defying federal authority. Washington issued a proclamation on August 7, authorizing his former aide-de-camp and current Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton to raise troops to suppress the rebellion. In his letter to Lee later that month, Washington noted that the rebellion had been met with universal indignation and abhorrence among the general public, and insisted he would not have resorted to such measures had they not been necessary. Aware that the young republic was still fragile, he was reluctant to appear tyrannical yet unwilling to let open defiance of federal law go unanswered. On September 30th, Washington mounted his horse to personally lead a force of 13,000 men, the largest U.S. military mobilization since the Revolution, toward western Pennsylvania. Although he soon continued by carriage and ultimately left Alexander Hamilton to direct the final phase of the campaign, it was the only time in history that a sitting U.S. president led troops in the field. Lee later joined Washington and the militia on their march. When confronted by this overwhelming show of force, the rebels dispersed without violence. Washington reported to Congress that although he respected the right of citizens to protest unjust laws, armed rebellion could not be tolerated if the Republic were to survive. Congress applauded his decision, but critics like Thomas Jefferson, then in retirement at Monticello, denounced the move as a dangerous overreach of executive power and a betrayal of Republican ideals. The Whiskey Rebellion ultimately exposed deep divisions in American political life. By the end of Washington's presidency, those differences had crystallized into the nation's first political parties, Jefferson and James Madison championing agrarian democracy on one side, and Hamilton and John Adams representing pro-industry, urban interests on the other.